You're listening to the Business Mike podcast. Amazing interviews with entrepreneurs and industry thought leaders.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Business Mike podcast. And joining me today is Rob. Rob, can you just tell everyone listening and watching a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on the show, by the way. So my name is Rob Dwyer, and I am the VP of Customer Engagement at Customer Direct, which is an outsourced services provider here in the St. Louis area. And then we also have a software division called Happitu, and I do a similar function for that. And Happitu is, we've got a couple of different products for contact centers. One is an agent-facing tool that helps them be consistent on every phone call. And the other one is for the operations team to do speech analytics and sentiment analysis and understand what's happening on each and every customer interaction.
All right. And how did you end up in this space of customer experience? Is it something you started right away doing, or did you have another career and found your way here? What's your story?
I definitely did not think this was my career. I was in the mortgage business for over a decade, and 2008 came and things weren't working very well in that business. I got let go from a very large bank that ended up getting bought out by another bank. And so I was just looking for something in the short term. And the contact center is where I ended up as an agent. I was working, supporting in an outsourced center, supporting one of the big three telecom, at the time, 4 telecom players, wireless providers here in the United States. And I got into training, I got into leadership development there, and I discovered that I really liked being in the contact center. And so I just stuck with it. And nearly 14 years later, here I am, not only still in the contact center space, but helping other contact centers solve some really interesting problems.
Yeah. And you mentioned Happitu is one of the products that you're selling. How exactly does that help customers enhance the experience? Because from my experience, most people, when they think of a contact center, they think of a place to complain. And that's basically it. They don't appreciate what else, it can do. So can you just shed some light on that?
Yeah, absolutely. In my experience as an outsourced provider, we've supported so many different kinds of businesses. And sometimes a contact center isn't just for the end customer, right? It could be business to business, and someone's trying to identify something to help an end customer out in the field. It could be sales. So you might have people calling in because they are looking to purchase a product or a service. And certainly there are customer care things that go along with that, where people are calling and maybe they've got a problem and they want it solved. So our solutions they're really two facets to them. Happitu Guide really is a workflow, scripting, and knowledge-based tool that helps agents in the moment be able to deliver a consistent experience and have all the knowledge they need at their fingertips. One of the things that is challenging in the call center space is sometimes you get asked questions that are new to you, or you didn't cover it in training, or you did cover it in training, but you just forgot because you haven't dealt with it in a long time. And so being able to access information allows you to sound confident when you're on the phone with a customer. And for a customer, that confidence is a big key to really having a good experience, because even if you solve a problem, if you don't sound confident and the customer recognizes that, they may not think that you solved it. And so they may call again and spend more time on a problem that was already solved. So that's what Happitu Guide does. And Happitu Vision is really can help a lot of different people in the call center depending on their function. So for instance, if I'm a supervisor and I'm looking to coach and develop my team, it can help me identify what some big opportunities are for me to coach individual agents and develop their performance. And as someone who may be looking more at the overall business performance, it helps me identify trends, call drivers, maybe some broken processes in some other part of the business that I can fix. And when you think about customer experience, it's not just how we interact with a contact center. It's not just customer service. It's the whole experience that I have with a brand. And sometimes that experience is broken because of an issue that I have that isn't the contact center, but I can identify it through the contact center. So for instance, maybe when a customer is ordering something, we're sending out an email that says, hey, click here, here's your shipping information. But it turns out that that button in the email doesn't work and it doesn't go anywhere. That's not the contact center's fault. But if you can identify that through the contact center, you can fix that, which in turn makes for a much better experience.
All right. The other thing I wanted to discuss with you was the contact center agents themselves. And there is sometimes a cultural divide, especially with 24-hour contact center support.
Yeah.
For instance, if you're in the United States or Canada or Europe, and the person on the other line is in, say, Asia, there might be a cultural challenge. So how do you bridge that gap of this person feeling confident in the support they're getting?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are all kinds of challenges that come with that. Part of it is that some people just recognize that they're talking to someone who maybe doesn't live anywhere near to them, and that automatically lowers their confidence out of the gate. But when you're able to deliver information in a consistent way to a customer, use confident language, and assure them that you're solving whatever issue they're calling about. It particularly happens when there's a problem, right? It's not as big of a deal if there's not a problem. Maybe I just want to order something. But when there's a problem, I really want to feel confident that whoever it is solving that. And I think a big part of that is just ensuring that we're able to use really good language. And so sometimes it helps to be able to provide phrasing for an agent that uses confident language so that they can deliver that to a customer in a way that the customer receives it the way that you want them to receive it. I've heard all kinds of agents, and it doesn't matter if they're agents that, if it's a US-based customer, and sometimes it's a US-based agent, but if they're not delivering information confidently, it shows. And so that really is not a divide of geography or of accent. It's just a divide of the language that we're using to deliver information. And when we can use that confident language, it really helps to make the customer feel assured that their problem is taken care of.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the ways to enhance that is obviously technology and artificial intelligence. So what trends are you seeing that are helping the call center deliver a better experience thanks to AI and technology?
Yeah, I mean, AI is, I think everyone knows that is all in the news. I mean, I actually just wrote an article that's going to come out later this month for ICMI about ChatGPT. And I just asked ChatGPT in this article if how it would fit into contact centers and could it potentially replace contact center agents. And the spoiler alert is even ChatGPT recognizes that we still need humans in contact centers because they're really better at delivering empathy to a customer when it's necessary. They're also better at understanding that sometimes you need to make an exception. Sure, we have policies and we have policies for a reason. But there are times when it makes sense for me to say, you know what, I see that this customer, maybe they don't fit exactly in the policy. Let me see if I can get an exception for them and go talk to their supervisor, whatever the case may be. AI is not going to do that. for us. We need to do that. But all of that said, AI can help in a lot of ways. So for instance, it can help automate some really repetitive tasks. It can also help customers on the front end to deflect some of the things that maybe come into the contact center that are really boring, quite honestly, for the agents. The biggest thing that it can really help with, though, is the analysis piece. Understanding how we can proactively be better at helping our customers and how we can coach and develop our people so that they perform better, and providing information to agents really at their fingertips when they need it. So they can really, again, it goes back to that confidence. They can deliver confidently when they're interacting with a customer. And those are things that AI absolutely can help, finding the right information at the right time or understanding what we can do better.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And sometimes people go wrong when they dial it too far the other way around, whereby people get irritated when they feel like they can't get through to a human being.
Yeah. Absolutely. I was actually just recently on another podcast called Spamming Zero, and the name of the podcast is inspired by people constantly hitting zero to get an agent when they dial into a contact center IVR, because they don't want to go through that automated process. They just want to talk to a person. And that's not everyone, but there will continue to be people that just want to talk to another person.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So what are some of the mistakes or the wrong things that companies tend to do when it comes to contact centers? What advice can you share with us on a few of those landmines to avoid?
I mean, there are lots of things that contact centers get wrong from time to time. But I think the ultimate driving factor is that they're not putting the customer and the customer's experience first. They're doing things that are motivated by other factors. So it may be cost, it may be a staffing issue. But if you're not thinking about how the customer is going to experience this change and what impacts it will have on them, that's when you can often get into trouble. So, implementing new technology, for instance, there are all kinds of ways to implement new technology and do it in a good way that is going to help agents, which is going to help customers. But if you're not considering upfront how that is going to affect your customers, you may find that your customers hate it. And you've spent all this money on this new technology, and instead all it does is anger your customers or get them upset. And the same can be true for policies and procedures that you implement inside your contact center. So for instance, again, we have policies in place, and every company needs policies to allow everyone to understand kind of where those guidelines are to help customers. But agents should also hopefully understand that exceptions can be made. And if you've got a culture that focuses on the customer, that's a culture where the agents go, I probably can make an exception here. And so instead of just quoting the policy, which I've heard agents do, right? I'm sorry, but our policy is. No one wants to hear that. There are better ways to deliver that information, but part of it is just they don't feel empowered to make decisions because the policy says this. And so I think the biggest mistake companies make is just not thinking about their customers in the things that they do, whether it's implementing policies or how they communicate things to agents or the technology they choose to implement.
Yeah, I agree. And certainly the way things are going, there's need to be flexible in the way, we relate with our clients and things like that, which takes me to the point of the call center itself. Some organizations look at it as a cost center. They find it to be very expensive. Why do we need this? Let's just get a bot on our website and the rest they'll just send email. We'll take it from there. So what would you advise in terms of when to have a call center, how many people to have there, what kind of software you need to consider at what stage you are as a company? How can you guide on that?
Yeah, you just asked about 1 million questions, even though it didn't come across that way. But it really is different for every organization, right? There is a time, if you're a really small organization, maybe a startup, where you can get by just using people's cell phones and answering as calls come in, and you just have a handful of people, and that can work. And then there will come a time where you're like, okay, well, now we need to dedicate some people to support our customers in a variety of different ways. And then there may also come a time where all of a sudden you need to grow. You may need to consider whether or not you want to outsource, find a partner that can help you with that. But all of those decisions, those technology decisions, the contact center decisions, again, it really, to make those decisions, you need to be thinking about your customers and how you're best going to support them. You may be able to support them really easily with just a couple of people because you have a relatively small customer base, and maybe they're all located in the same general geography as you are, and they're doing business around the same time you're doing business. Great. That works wonderfully. When you get to a point, maybe you're a global business or you're supporting customers 24/7 and you have a larger customer base, that changes how you have to look at how you support those customers. Do they have issues that are going to need to be addressed in the middle of the night from where you are? And if so, that's a real concern. How am I going to do that? Are you going to get up out of bed in the middle of the night and answer the phone? Or do you need a partner who can help you with that? Or do you need a call center that can help you with that? And then when you talk about the cost, I mean, a big part of keeping customers on board is how they experience doing business with your company. So if they can't ever get a hold of you when there's an issue or something that they want to talk through or just ask a question, you may find that they will choose to find someone who can provide a very similar product or service, whatever it is that they're buying from you, and a company that's willing to support them in the way that they need to be supported. So yes, is it going to cost you some money to have a contact center to support your customers? Absolutely. Is it going to cost you money to not have that? Potentially. So you have to balance these things. And I don't think, there's any one size fits all answer for any organization. It really is just thinking about, where is my organization today? How am I going to most effectively support my customers that makes sense for my business? And then when I have a contact center, getting them to think about, are there ways for us to generate additional revenue? Can we upsell? Can we talk to our customers about other product offerings that we have? Can we talk to our customers about recommending our services to people that they know? All of those things can potentially take your contact center from something that you're looking at as a cost center and really turn it into a revenue driver.
Yeah, absolutely. I once worked for a contact center while I was studying in the UK. And what struck me was I would pick a call for an appliance company. They had cookers and fridges. I deal with that customer. The next call was for a bank. The call after that was a completely different company. Yeah. So I was very, very confused as to how we were handling customers from all types of industries. And I was wondering whether that's the norm or if it's preferred for a contact center to be specialists in a particular field.
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I think ultimately it boils down to, it's typical if you're insourcing that you support, all of your customers, and that will really kind of narrow the focus. If you're an outsourcer, a lot of times it depends on the size of the customer that you're supporting. So the first contact center I worked in was a global BPO. And I think the one project that I worked on, which was it was just the retention department, it was like 1,200 agents. And so every single phone call I took was really the same kind of call. It was someone was calling to cancel their service. And my job was to identify the reason for that and potentially try to keep them with us as a customer if I could solve whatever problem it was that was causing them to cancel. But there are other businesses where they can't afford to pay people by the hour because they're just not going to have enough call volume. And so they may look to an outsourcer that can do something called shared services, where if I'm an agent in a shared environment, I'm handling calls for different kinds of clients. That's actually a situation where a tool like Happitu Guide comes in really handy, because it can pop up on the screen as soon as that call comes in, tell you how to answer the phone, and then guide you through the entire process of handling that particular customer's inquiry and sound confident. Even if, for instance, I haven't handled a call for that client for a week, I can still sound like I know exactly what I'm talking about because I've got something that's really guiding me through the process. That can be a really cost-effective way for smaller businesses that maybe don't have a ton of call volume to be able to still say, hey, we've got 24/7 customer support, even though they know, for 8 or 10 hours of the day, they may only get 1 or 2 phone calls. And if they were to pay for dedicated time, that would just not be cost effective. So again, it kind of goes back to that conversation I had about what's right for your business. For some businesses, it makes sense to have dedicated agents. For other businesses, they may find that they can get exactly what they need, getting with a partner that can offer them some shared services.
Right. And from the perspective of the agent, what sort of environment and tools would make their life easier? I like what you mentioned there, because from my experience, you'd have one software for the appliance company, a different software for the bank, so you had to learn all these softwares, get them up ready before the client starts to figure out that you're fumbling. So how, right. What sort of tools would work best? I like what you mentioned about Happitu, how it brings up information, guiding the agent basically on who this client is and how they can help them.
Yeah, I mean, the agent experience is really critical to that customer experience piece too, right? So it starts with doing some really good training for agents. They need to have the fundamentals down. No tool is going to replace them getting familiar with the brand, with the tools that they need to support those customers, and a general understanding of how those interactions will occur and what kinds of things people might call them about. But once you get past those fundamental pieces, having something that can be there as, if you will, the expert neighbor who sits next to you. I mean, when I started in the contact center, I actually worked from home almost from the very beginning. This is way back in, I don't even want to say, like 2010. I worked from home. But when we first got started in training, you would sit in a brick and mortar contact center environment in cubes, and there was always someone walking around who had been there a long time and kind of an expert to help all of us newbies. And so when you ran into a problem in that environment, you could quickly just ask to put the customer on hold, lean back and throw your hand up and get some help and say, hey, I've got this customer. This is the situation. What am I supposed to do here? A tool like Happitu Guide can actually be that for you, where you can just type in, what it is that you're looking for. I've seen it utilized where it provides step-by-step instructions, even with pictures of, a physical appliance that someone might be using in their home or in a restaurant. And I, as an agent, maybe have never seen one of these in person, but I can walk you through every little step on the little keypad because I'm seeing pictures of it to help guide someone through that menu navigation. Those are the kinds of things that for an agent, like, you feel really confident because it's almost like you're being there, and it's almost like having that expert who says, oh, I know what to do here, right? Click here, find this information, right? Now go back to them and explain this and gather this information, or whatever the case may be. Those are the kinds of things that, every agent wants to do a good job. I know customers may think that agents aren't out to do a good job. They really are. They just don't always have the tools to make them feel like they can do a good job. When you give them those tools, they, generally speaking, will do a really good job, and the customers will recognize that.
Right. And as we wind down the interview, I can't help but notice that you have some Star Wars items at the back. And so I wanted to ask you a customer experience question in line with that. And that is, how do entertainment or franchises create bonds with customers? I mean, someone like yourself, I would imagine you are attached to the classics, the old Star Wars movies, and not so much the new ones. So, it's not a product, not really a service. I mean, there's so many ways Star Wars can get to their customers. So how do they, what are your thoughts on how they can strengthen the bond with their customers?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things wrapped up in that. That's a really amazing question. I think the first thing is I need to make a connection through emotion somehow. Now, there are lots of different products and services that we use. We like the product, it gets the job done, but there's not really an emotional connection to it. And there are other products and services or companies that we do business with that we get an emotional connection to for one reason or another. And it sometimes can be a really small thing that changes the experience from what we're used to in a similar environment. I'll give you an example. I am a huge fan of Costco. So Costco is a warehouse retailer. You can think of it like a Walmart, but everything is sold in much bigger boxes, much bigger containers. So it costs a little bit more, but it lasts a lot longer. And it's a membership. So you have to pay an annual membership to shop there. But you can get all the kinds of things you would get at a grocery store or like a Walmart, a lot of those same things. What makes the Costco shopping experience unique, in my opinion, is that as you're walking through the store, they will often be handing out samples of some of the food products that they sell, and it changes. And so if they've got something that's on sale, there'll be someone there that is literally like cooking up some little tiny bit of food for you to taste to decide whether or not that's something that you'd like to buy and take home for you. And I think everyone can understand the emotional connection that we get with food, especially food that we really like. And so here's Costco saying to my customers, not only do I have this at a really great price point for you, but I want you to taste it right here so that you can make that decision, as opposed to waiting till you get it home and then tasting it and going, I really didn't like this. And we just have such a big connection emotionally with taste and smell that they build part of that emotional connection through that. And they do it right there in the stores. And that's just unique, because if I go to Target or if I go to Walmart or my local grocery store or whatever other place that I go shopping, I don't experience that. That doesn't happen.
Right, Rob. So as we wind down the interview, can you just let the listeners know, how they can connect with you, how they can learn more about what you're doing and find you on the internet?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the best place to find me is LinkedIn. You can visit us at happitu.com. That's HAPPITU.com, or customerdirect.com. I am all over LinkedIn. I also have my own podcast called Next in Queue. So you can find that anywhere that you listen to podcasts, or you can find it on YouTube. I'm also on Twitter at _Q_QUEUE. I've even got a TikTok. So, feel free to find Next in Queue on TikTok. But really, LinkedIn is the best spot.
Right. That brings us to the end of the interview. Thank you so much, Rob. I'm sure that everybody listening has learned something new, and I look forward to chatting with you some more in the future.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much for having me.